Welcome to this episode of Prairie People's Poetry, a spotlight series highlighting Saskatchewan spoken word artists through performances and conversations on the craft and community of the art form. I'm your host, Cat Abenstein, and today we're talking to spoken word and multidimensional artist Janelle Pewapsconias, aka ecoaborijanelle.
Hi, I'm Janelle Pewapsconias. My stage name is ecoaborijanelle, and I'm a spoken word artist.
Amazing. It's nice to have you here, Janelle. Can you tell me your style of spoken word?
Sure. So my style of spoken word kind of varies day to day, emotion to emotion, piece to piece sometimes. I started off in the poetry slam, and I'm very much influenced by that kind of energy, very big energy, very like emotion driven. And so I do a lot of slam pieces, but I also do a lot of storytelling type pieces, slow rolling pieces. And then I also follow the nehīyaw custom as best as I can and based on what I know, and to tell stories and to talk about different topics. So it varies from time to time, but mostly I'll say like slam poetry or just spoken word poetry in general. Yeah.
Amazing. Can you tell us a little bit about the topics that you do write about?
Sure. Well, a lot of my poetry is inspired by, I guess, my perspective and my culture. It's very much like identity pieces. I talk a lot about the land. I talk about decolonizing. I talk about matriarchy and about anti-oppression. And a lot of these topics and poems are to create space for these kind of works and thoughts and poetries. You know, I'm trying to be the voice that I wanted to hear when I was a kid, the kind of stories that I needed when I wanted to be strong and that I didn't hear here in Saskatchewan. So I am trying to be the voice that I was when I was a little girl. Mm-hmm. And that's where I'm inspired a lot by. What do I want my inner Janelle to hear and know? And then it's empowering in that way.
Speaking of when you were a younger person, a younger Janelle, mm-hmm. what was inspiring to you at that time?
I would say like Justice Heroes, Power Rangers. Even though I wasn't quite allowed to watch it, it was a little low-key violent, but still like I was influenced by them. A lot of like Marvel characters. What are they called again? Yeah, Professor X and all the mutants. Yeah, that's what it is. And Rogue, you know. So all these characters that were fighting for justice, fighting for something better and bigger and stronger, making sure the little guy is heard and taken care of. You know, those are stories that really inspired me and wanted me to do something with my life when I grew up, not knowing quite what it would be, but it had a purpose for trying to make things right.
I hold the sun. With outstretched palms, I am one of this prairie. I wear the soil upon my skin. I am a seasonal cycle, one of this land. A body of water and blood and bone flowing freely, holding water above and in between surfaces. In her silent nights, magnetically, I am pulled to the equator, called in by the tides to balance and to center our place between here and creator. Photosynthetically, I breathe life from wind, from breath, wind and words, spitting new ideas, moving stories and uplifting in my breeze. In all the ways that I am, feminine and masculine, connected through the water, moved by the wind, bold and by the fire, I wear the sun upon my skin. Thank you.
At what point did you consider yourself an artist, like more a storyteller, or do you even consider yourself an artist?
I do now, but it's it was a long roundabout to not come out and say that I'm an artist, but more so understanding what artist means. Understanding that it's not a certain way, like formal, like in gallery, like behind a rope. To me, art is practice. Art is thinking a different way. Art is creating and being in the state of creating something for something. So like claiming the title of artist didn't come till a grant kind of forced me to. You have to be an artist to get this fund to do this work. So it was like a formal coming out. But then after that, it was like, yeah, I am practicing. I am thinking about this. I am evolving. I am growing my practice. I am doing all these things in different ways. So artist isn't formal. Artist is doing. Artist is grassroots. Artist is being in whatever kind of style, whether or not you get it published or not. It's not about what you see outside. It's also the everyday. It's the every interaction. It's becoming a person who thinks about all these things. So it's, formally was a grant that kind of like gave me that title, but then after that, it was becoming this role. And as I go, the word artist kind of shifts and changes and grows. And I'm just feeling really lucky to be, I'm an artist.
Yeah, you are. Yeah. So has your writing process changed from when you first started creating to now being an artist?
Yeah, definitely my style of writing has changed since I started to now, because in the beginning it was a lot of raw emotion. It was a lot of like, this is my first time, unfortunately, having my voice heard and valued and listened to. And so when you have that space for the very first time, a lot of things come tumbling out. There was less consciousness around like how much harm or protection and safety that you have in those words. And so as I went on, I began to understand that those things are really important as well. So as I grew with my writing style, with my performance style even, I knew that I had to be responsible for all these emotions. And being in the slam, you come to realize that your poetry and your trauma is for points. So how then do you not respond to all these hard things? And so it was like a consciousness development for me as well. Like, what then is an artist? What then is a spoken word artist? And what then is a nehīyaw spoken word artist in this territory? All these things have just becoming more apparent to me, but also things I'm thinking about more. And as I do that, as I'm healing as well, because that's hard. I'm a multifaceted person. As I'm developing all these things, I'm becoming more open and free. I have more tools available to me and better, clearer perspective where I'm not reacting. I'm living and creating art from a perspective of my indigeneity, of my nehīyawness, of my femness, of my two-spiritedness, and celebrating that rather than responding to colonialism and oppression. Because those things, they're not going to benefit me. What is the empowerment. And so as I go, I'm evolving and realizing these things. And I'm hoping that in the journey of empowering myself, I can empower other women, other femmes, other two-spirits, other kids on the res who just want to have their voice heard but don't know how or where or when.
I need the wild and the nighttime sounds of the res, where the freshest air and the coldest winds snap through, around, and in between us. Between the endless greens of the summertime and the crisp blue skies. Sometimes I wonder if people back home know they hold so much color, texture, and light. It's a privilege. My eyes call for home, and in one look I can see them shut. My home is populated by poplars. Willing willows lean and hold tight to watery spaces while wolf willow wants to play in the sun. Where this land is where you come from and then where you eventually go back to. Homelands are the wild things where they know they're better off in the wilderness, where we speak and all beings will stop and take a look. You are both the main character and spin off in this real story. I can go where I want, when I want, if and so I want. Where the res dogs are always a reflection of who we are, and the berry patches are somewhere. I was asked if I missed living in the city. I smiled and replied, no. Can't say the city sounds are normal anymore.
So you sometimes talk about like safer spaces. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure.
Yeah.
So for me, like, safe space is a wonderful ideal, but it's hard to reach in different communities. It's hard to reach like perfectly safe space, but we can work on getting safer spaces. So in brackets, the R, we can work on being better than yesterday, than last show, than last month. And so for me, developing safer spaces is giving you space to also make mistakes and to learn and to be better. So safer is just with the goal of safe space in mind, but then it's like the process of getting there and learning. Mm-hmm.
So sort of moving aside and thinking about community surrounding spoken word, you do a lot of work to both create community, but also to be an engaged community member. And I was wondering, like, what does it mean to you to take care of your audience or your community in general?
So taking care of audience and taking care of community are big responsibilities of the artist, I feel, or the person saying the words in the space. Be it the MC, be it all the performers, be it someone making an announcement. Everyone hears you, and even those you don't see in the space hear you. And so for me, taking care of the audience sounds like ensuring that your poetry is truthful and authentic to yourself, but it's also giving these preambles of like trigger warning. If you need to leave the space, I'm full and clear aware, making space for people to feel uncomfortable and knowing that perhaps there's room to like debrief afterwards. But that's just within the room. But then what then after is you're offering to take care of that broader community. Sometimes it means that you're, offering space to debrief or talk about poetry. And sometimes it isn't. Self-care is super important. So it kind of leads into like, how do you as the self operate in the community and how can the community care for you? So a lot of it comes down to like communication and boundaries and confidence and self-assuredness, because if you are able to say, community, I'm not feeling that great, so this performance is going to be a little 5 out of 10, putting that out there, then the community can meet you halfway, support you when you need it, give it the extra love that you need. And it's always a back and forth, I think. So as I go, it's evolving and understanding what it means to care for the person in the room and then in the community. But that's definitely a necessary step as an artist, is to make sure that you're continuing that good space. Yeah.
Oh, amazing. Can you talk a little bit about the responsibility of an artist?
Like I said, I feel like I'm new, and as I go, it's like revealing itself to me. So some of the responsibilities I think of an artist is to come with the materials, with your most authentic voice, with your truth. So it's like honoring the spirit or the self and what you have to say by being honest and authentic. But that sometimes means, beginning or continuing or finishing off your healing journeys. So the more I feel like the more authentic we are to ourselves, the more healthier, more honest we are with our emotions, which is, a bit of a counter to the patriarchy, to colonialism, this emotional connection and authenticity, this communication of needs. This is very sometimes rude here. But once we can get over those ideas, once we can move past that, I think that we can create better connections, better, safer communities, having community meet us where we are. And so responsibility of the artist then is to always, well, for me, I'm speaking for me, is to making sure that I'm always looking at these things and trying to be the best I can be for the audience, and then also for them to reciprocate to me. Yeah.
10 reasons to save res dogs. Number 10. Res dogs remind us. In days before the reservation, the patchwork, before residential schools, placement of invisible borders between our actions and our words, res dogs were our helpers. See, the role of the dog was to remind us of our ways of knowing. See, dogs were born of the wolf, pack beasts following the lead of their elders and of their children, their protectors following behind them, traditions following these kinship rules. Choose to be our little brother, carrying our travois, gentle reminders, bundles of teachings and reflections of ourselves. Be kind to our little brother, compassionate to our kin. Res dogs, our reminders. Wakutuin. Number 9. Res dogs are a mystery. They are mixed breeds of dog and resilience. Adorable even when they're ugly, like a box of chocolates. You never know what kind of res puppy you're going to get. Number 8. Once a res dog claims you, you are theirs now. See, if they like you, they decide if they want to stay. It was a process just to train you. Their beady little eyes say, human, you feed me. Human then listens. Res dog then claims them. Forgets the lifetimes before this. Like it all happened for a reason, and you were their reason. And you are theirs now. See, they've claimed you. Number 7. Res dogs will always return. See, after they claimed you, they've claimed your yard, your car, the bush, the trash now strewn across your lawn. Everything is claimed and loyal, so remember, you are theirs, and they claimed you. Number 6. Res dogs are indestructible beasts, tough, Billy Jack terriers with 9 lives and true grit, like they will take this right paw and put it across that left cheek, like they shaved last night and they woke up with a full beard, like they have a fist instead of a chin, like res dogs are terminators sent from the ancestors. Res dogs, stay or stom with me if you want to live in languages of love and loyalty and survivance. Res dogs are almost indestructible. Number 5. A res dog is truly autonomous. One of a collective dog nation belonging only to each other. They say F borders, honoring our territories and borders, living with this land, showing us how to live, living in all the worlds that matter, with their land and their language and their dog cultures. A res dog is autonomy. Let us follow their lead. Number 4, our relationships to our res dogs is a reflection of ourselves and our ways of being. See, relationship to our dogs speak to our pedagogies, meaning who we are is what we do, not what we say. See, cultural enthusiasm is easier than living out these teachings after your speech has ended, after these mics turn off, after this post stops trending. Look. Number 3. Res dogs understand Indigenous languages. Hearing our ancestors better than we can, res dogs bark into cold nights, stories and songs and howls and yips, sending messages across multiple dimensions and multiple languages and Michif and Dene, Anishinaabe, Sodo, and all the dialects of Cree. Res dogs perk their ears, witness your energy, understanding and reading between the lines, knowing the difference between a wuss and when you mean it. Number 2, a res dog will be your medicine. When you are sick, your comfort in your pain, the laughter in your quiet, the sweet in your sour, a res dog is there for you. In thick and thin, a res dog is your medicine. And number 1, a res dog is our protector, the hero the res deserves, the silent guardian, the watchful protector, our bark knight.
When you think about investing in your art, what's the best investment you've made? And not just talking about money, but like time, energy.
There's so many investments I've made to myself. A bit of the sacrifice as a single mother is, and it is a sacrifice, is being able to be present in these spaces. They're not always child-friendly or family-friendly. So coming to these spaces, coming to a slam, I have to have childcare at all times. Going to, CFSW or SIPS, like these other poetry festivals in different cities. Like, I couldn't bring my son affordably to be able to go. It was the hardest experience to go to the Banff Art Center of Creativity to do my residency, because that was like the longest time I've been without my son, and being away from him is really hard as a mother. But have him be away from me, like, I don't know what the impacts are of like being away that long. But in order for me to gain these capacities to be in these spaces, I have to leave something behind. And so like that's the hard part. But it's also been such a benefit. So every time I go in these spaces, I'm making sure I'm learning. I'm making sure that I'm putting work into myself. I'm making sure I'm resting. Oh, girl. Like sleep. I'm making sure I'm eating well. I'm making sure that I'm drinking enough water and enjoying my life, because the time to myself without active parenting is few and far and in between. And especially in the pandemic, we're together like 24 hours a day almost sometimes, unless I like walk away from our house, we're together at all times. So, just being able to access these spaces, it's like a bit of a give and take. And so that has been an investment, is just time away. And I don't know what that's going to be, but hopefully with these sacrifices that we're making, it's going to keep continuously allowing me to grow as an artist in my career. And hopefully I'm not leaving my son behind. And that's a teaching in itself. Don't leave your kids behind in the pursuit of your own goals. I'm his. So that's been tough. So unpack that. It's a lot to like say out loud and discuss, but it's a piece of this puzzle, and hopefully in the future generations it won't be like that. We can continuously work on creating inclusive spaces within the arts so that mothers, the important fabric of the matriarchy, can participate.
So we have a time for a couple more, but just to expand a little bit more on that, like what's an ideal space? Like, what do you need from the community to keep practicing your art?
Well, There are I feel like there's such a value for with spaces without children sometimes, and that's great. I support that. But all of Poetry Slam spaces are essentially not child friendly. So if there's a way to move it from that 8, 7, 9 p.m. time schedule to something earlier in the day, that is just a step in the way that we can be more inclusive to families. Another one is the sound space. So how do you stop the people from shouting out loud and the rambunctiousness of a Poetry Slam? You can't, but you can make things a little bit more sound sensitive for little ears. You can offer earplugs even. Family-friendly spaces would be great, but then there's also how do you balance the topics and the tough themes that come up in a Poetry Slam? Well, then maybe we need to shift how Poetry Slam is run, how those scoring systems look like, how people can come to the stage. Maybe there's a rule that you have to take care of your audience and you can't say, there's a rule that you can't say oppressive things, but you still get the space to say it in your poem if it is. So, I mean, there's some things you can look around there. But in the broader scale of my arts, it'd be really cool if there was a single parents prize or some sort of supplement, because artist life is hard, but single parent artist life, what you don't know you don't know what I have to do to make this work. So yeah, something like that to help support parents as they're trying to build and grow and expand. That would be really helpful. Even just being able to bring my son to the Banff Art Center would have been so helpful. But the challenge is then school time. How do you navigate that? So it's a lot of navigating things and a lot of small supports that can happen. Definitely. I feel like it's a further discussion to bring in those parents that needs to happen, and consult with the community right from the horse's mouth, for other words. Yeah.
The wow. In my language means welcome, means there is more than enough space for you here, means there are safer spaces for your identities, means inclusion is just one piece of this larger puzzle. In 3 syllabics, the wow. In this land-based and participatory workshop, you will dress for the weather, and whether or not you are ready, the workshop is to let yourself play. Bound and walk across this ecosystem, fall and hit the crunchy grasses, get dusty. Learn that these grasses prickle, that when you hit the ground, you will find that you are belonging to this prairie just as much as they are. Learn that your body balances within these airs. Learn that the sun activates your cells once you touch them and lets you awaken. If you let it, it's a hug. In this workshop, you will get what you give. You pay what you can. You get more than you give. And in the end, you can take this home. Let the sediment become a part of you. Let the Mother Earth catch you, uphold you, and scold you, teach you all at once. And in the end, we say thank you in the best way that we can, in these good ways. And always remember, this workshop is forever, so always be open.
It's just been so lovely talking to you about all of this. I just want to give you the opportunity to say one last thing. If there's something that you wanted to say, you just didn't have a chance. Is there anything that you'd like to speak?
Sure. My message is for young people. A lot of times we see what we want to be like. We see what we'd like to work towards. And sometimes it's on a stage, sometimes it's in hip hop, sometimes it's, being an MC. And all these things are totally accessible, things we can work towards. But just to be aware that the art of becoming that artist is so important. Get your foundational skills. And if you want to just start somewhere, just write. just write. And also look up some like free music for sure. That definitely helps, but just write. And eventually you'll create something that is meant for a stage or a page or wherever you want to put it, or not, because artists don't need to publish. Well, IMO don't need to publish to be in that practice of being artists. So yeah, thank you.
Amazing. Thanks so much, Janelle.
Thanks.
This has been Prairie People's Poetry with me, Cat Abenstein, as your host. Thanks to Janelle Pewapsconias for her work, and thanks to you for tuning in. Be sure to like, share, and check out the other videos in our series. And be sure to let us know what you think. Thanks for supporting Prairie Poetry.